Before the first pyramid pierced the sky, before the obelisks pointed to the heavens, there were wombs. Wombs carved into the earth, guarded by trees, blessed by the rain, and honored as the birthplace of spirit and life. In the ancient landscapes of Africa, long before colonial borders and foreign religions drew their lines in the sand, our ancestors knew something sacred, that the earth was not just ground to be walked upon, but a living, breathing, sacred mother. A mother with many names, a mother with many mouths, a mother with many wombs. They believed that the earth held portals, not just physical places, but spiritual openings, where life entered, where ancestors returned, and where the divine feminine revealed her face. These were the wombs of the earth, natural caves, underground shrines, sacred rivers, and temple spaces shaped like the belly of a mother. They were not just symbols, they were sites of power, initiation, creation, and healing. This was the heart of African spirituality, balance. And that balance was not possible without the feminine, without the goddess, without the womb. In this journey, we will walk through time, into sacred groves across rivers that once bore offerings, and into temples where women once whispered to the gods. We'll explore how the womb was not just a body part, but a cosmological symbol, a divine gateway between spirit and matter. But we'll also uncover how colonial forces, religious conquest, and patriarchal systems tried to silence these spaces, tried to bury the memory of the feminine, tried to turn womb into taboo. Yet the earth remembers. And the earth, like all mothers, does not forget her children. Welcome to the wombs of the earth, sacred feminine temples and birth portals in ancient Africa. This is not just history, it is remembrance. This is not just mythology, it is the heartbeat of the land. Are you ready to return? The ancient heartbeat of Africa pulses with the feminine force that births and sustains life. In African spirituality, the divine is not merely a distant deity, but intimately embodied in the form, power, and mystery of woman, Earth herself. Among the Fawn and Dahomey, Maulisa encompasses both moon and sun, creator mother and paternal father, reminding us that the cosmic origin is female essence, balanced with masculine authority. In Igbo cosmology, Allah reigns as the spirit of earth, morality, fertility, and lineage, her womb as abundant as the soil that births crops and binds generations together. Across Egypt, the goddess Mut manifests as sky mother and divine nurse, crowning pharaohs with her maternal mantle, while among the An, Asase Ya is the earth goddess nurturer who provides rain for planting and memory for culture. In Congo belief, Nzambichi stands as co-creator alongside Nzambi Mpungu, shaping the world in balance and guiding humans to honor both birth and harvest. These powerful feminine presences illustrate that the womb of the earth is more than a site, it is a symbol of cosmic containment, transformation, and renewal. In every cycle of creative power, the womb incubates life, holds the seed, and then releases the world on the other side, with birth, death, and rebirth as sacred processes. This sacred symbolism extended across rituals, dance, and alignments of communal life festivals. Women carried clay pots to groves, drawing symbolic blood offerings to bless the land. Priestesses invoked earth deities as caretakers of morality and birthed wisdom into the community. The womb was not private. It was communal, public, and divine, woven into the contours of sacred temples designed in the curves of female flesh. In these cosmologies, masculine deities, sun gods, sky lords, storm warriors, did not erase the feminine, but worked in tandem with her creative power. Sango's thunder calls forth rain only because the earth woman opens herself to receive it. The sun's heat ripens crops in collaboration with soil moisture and feminine generosity. The cosmos operates through balance, an interplay of energies where night and day, birth and harvest, sky and earth exist in measured harmony. The earth herself bears witness to this sacred interplay. Behind every grain of millet, every seedling pushing upward, there is feminine earth womb fertility sustaining the cycle of life. Long before modern agriculture, these ancient agreements existed, that the earth, as mother, gives life, nourishes lineage, and catalogs memory. In the bones buried and the seeds planted, the womb of the earth remembers. In the seasonal rains and the floods, the womb of the earth gives and withdraws with undeniable rhythm. By centering the womb as cosmic origin, African spiritual systems upended the notion of creation as a top-down decree. Instead, they located divine power in generativity, nurturance, and cyclical restoration. Men and women alike participated in rituals honoring birth, gestation, and the return of spirit to earth, a baptism of blood and clay that reaffirmed kinship with the planet and with each other. This balance was ecological, social, and spiritual, weaving humanity into a single tapestry of belonging. In this early framework, patriarchal hierarchies had no place. Matriarchs, earth priests, midwives, and knowledge keepers governed lineage, partnership, and cosmic balance. They taught that power was not claimed but shared, that authority was not held but nurtured, and that the greatest sovereignty lay in sustaining life, not taking it. The womb, with its curve and hush, was revolution the moment it opened. In silence, in labor, in life. This spiritual orientation was never primitive, but purposeful. Earth as living temple, woman as visible deity, womb as portal of creation and memory. It is from this understanding that humanity learned to walk softly, sow compassion, and honor transformation. Without the feminine at the center, there would be no harvest, no lineage, and no memory of the past. Without it, there would be no future. In reclaiming these truths, modern Africa is responding to an older voice, that of earth, womb, and woman. We remember the first temples not built of rock or brick, but molded in clay by midwives who birthed not only children but community. We heal by returning to the original altar, the earth womb, listening to its rhythm again. For in the line from Maulisa to Allah, Mutuasasaya, Nzambichi to every mother, we find that the universe was never created from above. It was nurtured from within a womb. The Osun Osogbo sacred grove in Nigeria breathes with living spirit, its winding paths, shaded shrines, and riverbanks forming a living womb in which earth pulses with life. Carved terracotta sculptures and painted clay caverns mimic the curve and hush of a woman's body, while the gentle flow of the Osun River carries life-giving water as though nourished by a maternal heartbeat. The space is both a physical sanctuary and a spiritual echo chamber, tuned to the cycles of fertility, rain, and human renewal. Priestesses and healers, dressed in white and gold, guard its pathways, observing lunar cycles and planting seeds at moonrise, honoring both nature's rhythms and the ancestral mothers who shaped them. Offerings of honey, palm oil, and kola nuts align body, land, and spirit. The grove does not only stand in nature, it is nature, sculpted, sung into being, and kept holy across centuries. Deep in Ethiopia and Congo lie ancient birth caves, whose arching ceilings open like a tunnel into womb space. They are places women used to labor, literally giving birth within clay-dark silence. Their round chambers echo the shared breath of mother and midwife, as well as the land itself. In Ethiopia, some caves held birthing altars, where women sat before concealed openings, feeling earth at their backs as they welcomed life. Midwives sang ancestral songs while pouring water from sacred streams over birthing bodies. These spaces and rituals remind us that childbirth was never merely biological. It was negotiation between human flesh and living earth. Listening closely, women learned the language of ground, of ancestral bones, and of future generations. In Egypt, the Temple of Hathor at Dendera was envisioned as a cosmic womb, where the fertility of celestial bodies met the flesh of woman. Its rounded sanctuaries and curved vaults evoke a divine vessel that received goddesses and mortal women alike. Priestesses administered rites under faint lamplight, offering prayers to the goddess of motherhood, whose star-singing body was inscribed upon its walls. The temple's sacred well brimmed with water from the Nile's brow, linking lunar cycles to fertility and birthing power. Women would descend stone thresholds to enter its central womb chamber, where they left offerings and received blessings, reinforcing their own alignment with creation's rhythms. These womb architectures shared design principles. Circular portals mimic the threshold of human labor. Clay-lined walls hold warmth like maternal flesh. Narrow entries obscure outsiders, preserving the sanctity of ritual. Inside, womb shrines often included basins for offerings, raised platforms for earthly midwives, and carved niches for sacred symbols. They were always oriented to nature's calendar. Moon phase windows illuminated internal altars at specific nights. Seasonal winds carried released prayers upward. Rainwater pooling in hidden depressions was understood as a blessing received through Earth's own womb. Priestly women, not peripheral figures but spiritual anchors, managed the rituals that made these spaces breathe with life. They recognized that the feminine divine was embodied in both space and body. Every birthright, eclipse, and river blessing carried ritual choreography. Drum rhythms, incantations, incense smoke, purification baths in clay, and white cloth draped at thresholds. These acts aligned the human body with the living architecture of the shrine. Women moved through these spaces as avatars of the Divine Mother, and in birth they participated in a cosmic cycle, echoing the creation of worlds. In such sacred geography, calendars aligned in layers. Ritual life responded to earth cycles. Rain planting, harvest, menstruation, and moon phase ceremonies intersected with the cadence of shrine life. Birth caves might be opened only during specific lunar phases, while Osun priests timed planting rites to first rains. Temple festivals like Egypt's Festival of Hathor marked transitions in cosmic and human fertility alike. Within the womb architecture, time collapsed. Past and present, human and divine, blood and soil, these blended in prayer, mud, and psalm. The physical shapes of these shrines were not arbitrary, they were theology incarnate. Each curve echoed a promise, each shadowy corner whispered ancestral power. Bodies entering became bodies remembered. Births became prayers for cosmic balance. Prayers became seeds for future generations. Through clay and cave, river and temple, African women did not simply worship the sacred feminine. They embodied it. They walked inside the womb of the earth to remember that life always begins from within. In countless African traditions, birth transcended the realm of biology and became a deeply spiritual event, where breath, blood, earth, and spirit coalesced to birth more than just life, but lineage and cosmic promise. Midwives, often referred to as earth priestesses or birth keepers, stood at the threshold of human and divine, performing sacred duties that extended far beyond the act of delivery. Their hands held centuries of ancestral knowledge passed through oral lines. Their songs summoned Earth's presence with each contraction. Their rhythms matched the river's flow and the woman's breath, weaving together a tapestry of ceremony that honored the earth as a co-creator in the process of giving life. These midwives often consulted diviners before birth to interpret lunar positions, seasonal patterns, or ancestral messages to determine the most auspicious time for labor. They prepared fertility baths of sacred herbs and clay, chanting invocation songs to the womb, the water, and the soil that would receive the placenta back into its husbandry. No child entered the world without the village's ritual embrace, and no womb flowered without communal intention. Initiatory rites accompanied these births, marking the pregnant woman's journey as both physical passage and spiritual transformation. Pregnant women performed pilgrimages to womb shrines, where they circled sacred stones, symbolically entering the earth's belly before entering labor. Their footsteps were guided by prayer and offerings, millet porridge, honey, fragrant oils, ensuring that the child's arrival was not simply nepotistic but covenantal, connecting the newborn to ancestors and earth itself. These rites affirmed that a woman's body was a portal where spirit incarnated, and the community gathered to witness and sanctify that process. Midwives would align their chants with Earth's pulses, sometimes referencing the movement of underground waters or the shifting stars, reminding Mother Earth of her shared role in creation's recurring miracle. After labor, the placenta was never discarded casually. It was carefully wrapped in cloth and buried at the birth site or in a natal grove, multiple feet beneath the surface, with prayers asking the Earth Mother to enfold it and the child with her ongoing nurturing presence. This burial ritual signified the child's first return to the Earth's spiritual womb, grounding human life in the eternal cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. This act echoed another cultural belief, that death was not an end, but a return to the Earth's womb, a passage home. When a person died, their body was ritually returned to the ground in a manner mirroring the burial of the placenta, ensuring that their spirit could be reborn through the ancestral realm, in dreams, or through memories carried by kin. Funerary rites called upon the same earth spirits honored during birth rituals, affirming that each person's life was bookended by the womb of the world, entered at birth, exited at death, and never truly lost but recycled through lineage, memory, and the cycles of soil and seed. In some traditions, girls entering puberty underwent their own sacred passage through Earth's womb places. They would spend days in secluded caves or huts, mirroring birth and death simultaneously. Buried temporarily in ceremonial privacy to emerge as women, acknowledged by the earth as mothers-in-waiting. Their emergence was celebrated with offerings, dances, and songs that acknowledged both menstrual blood and ancestral power, binding feminine fertility to the cycles of nature and community responsibility. These rites of passage were not simply biological initiation. They were sacred transformation, reaffirming the belief that womanhood is rooted in the earth's deeper currents. Diviners and spiritual birth keepers often maintained a seasonal calendar linked to fertility rites. Prior to planting season, women would gather in womb shrines to perform childbirth rites collectively, even if no one was pregnant, to renew the earth's creative potential. These ceremonies celebrated the fecundity of wombs and fields, honoring goddesses like Ala and Asasiya, and seeking balance between nurture and harvest. Similarly, rites for pregnant women incorporated moon cycles. Pregnancies were often timed so that birth aligned with new or full moons, seen as moments when Earth's womb was most fertile, most receptive to the infusion of life that echoed cosmic rhythms. The overlapping symbolism of womb and cave, placenta and seed, girl and mother, death and rebirth, illuminated a worldview in which Earth itself was mother womb, and woman the vessel of that sacred continuity. Childbirth was a communal covenant sealed by midwives, diviners, mothers, ancestors, and Earth itself. The spiritual duties carried by midwives extended beyond births. They healed womb diseases, counseled grieving families, performed rituals for barren couples, and mediated between living and ancestral realms. Their authority was both spiritual and social. They were knowledge keepers, moral guides, and living links in the chain of cosmic motherhood. In these traditions, the moment a child took its first breath was punctuated with collective ritual, drums signaling the world's heartbeat, songs naming the newborn in alignment with sacred calendars, incense smoke spiraling upward like life emerging from darkness, and water drawn from wells benedicted by earth priestesses, meant to wash both child and people in emergence-Aryan blessing. The event was not private. It was cosmic, ancestral, communal, and ecological. The fields, the groves, the sky above, and the soil beneath all bore witness. Thus, birth, life, and death were mapped onto the womb of the earth with reverent coherence. One's life began in clay-dark silence, and often returned to that same silence upon death, but only as part of an ongoing spiral. The womb symbolism reaffirmed that Earth was our origin and destination, and that communities existed to guide each person through those cosmic portals. To be born was to step into both community and cosmos. To die was to walk home through Earth's womb once more. In the ceremonial worldview, no breath is ordinary, no life is isolated, and no death is unceremonied. The sacred feminine pulses beneath every breath we draw. A womb beneath our feet that remembers each life, each return, each cycle of maternal birth and ancestral rebirth. The womb has shaped memory in African cultures, with an elegance both profound and visceral. Artists shaped calabashes into bulbous curves, the turned wood and pottery echoing flesh and vessel in tactile homage. Spiral symbols etched into cloaks, walls, and masks carry the imprint of contraction, birth, and energetic return, evoking cycles of life that begin and end in womb-like folds. In temple carvings and engravings across the continent, from rock shrines to grand halls, the curve becomes symbol, sanctuary, and reminder. Life begins and returns there. This form becomes a visual pulse, reminding observer and worshipper that creation rises from a place neither empty nor formless, but rich with possibility. Dance became living sculpture of birth. Women and dancers bent in slow contractions, arms curling into bellies, knees folding as if emerging from darkness. Each movement honored labor and lineage, reenacting cosmic birthing through ritual gesture. Drums mimicked heartbeat. Breath became prayer. Energetic build and release mirrored the womb's sacred rhythm. Conclusion and emergence. In these performances, dancers became symbolic birther, spirit channeling cosmic energies through every movement. Storytelling layered meaning through oral verse. Elders told the tale of the great mother who birthed the moon and stars, of earth wombs that opened to swallow crocodile and child alike, of ritual midwives who sang secrets into newborn ears. These stories held both blessing and warning. Reverence of the womb's power, acknowledgement of its mysteries and dangers. Proverbs insisted on an awareness of womb's weight and shape. That which births must hold, but may also devour. That which gives life may also demand tribute. In these tales, memory becomes cautionary and celebratory tribute in one. The sacred mothers appearing in oral tradition enchant with cosmic roles. They were not demigods, they were mothers, inheritors of primordial power. They birthed not only children but seasons, sons, prophecy, and power. Through speech their shapes were summoned. Through memory they endured. A grandmother's story of obtaining rain with a clay jar and song became inherited instruction for birthing rain gardens, marrying the memory of the womb to real landscape and ritual. In ritual drama, a heroine would incarnate an ancestral mother who birthed drought, turned it to wine, and taught the land to heal. In such enactments, memory and womb shape entwined time and purpose, proving that ancestral memory is a sculpted process carried through body, voice, and land. These symbols have persisted as memory keepers across generations, long after stone shrines were buried and colonial churches erected over earth temples. In daily routines, a woman may tie her fabric with a spiral knot at the back, cocooning her child to her womb and to ancestral shape. A farmer cuts calabash stand for offerings, mindful of curves that mimic Earth's belly. A midwife carries a carved wooden spiral amulet, a map of ancestral womb paths, into each birth. These symbols circulate like living texts, teaching, reminding, guiding, binding present to past. Even as colonialism attempted to silence these memory keepers, the womb shape endured through coded garb, storytelling in dark huts, hidden dance circles, and whispered prayers. Syncretized faiths preserved the forms in disguised masquerades or in hidden shrines painted behind church walls. In diaspora, these shapes surfaced in sculptures, quilted cloth, and tattoos, even when their origin lay veiled in forgetfulness. The memory remained. The curve remembers creation. The spiral reminds of return. The dance recites the body's role in cosmic birthing. In this way, memory became a shape, and shape became saints of memory. The womb became a memory mode, a mnemonic device carried by bodies, vessels, stories, and land. It carried continuity through rupture and erasure. Every spiral symbol, every calabash bowl, every dance echo became an act of remembering, an ancestral invitation to return to creative center. The womb, in form and function, refuses to vanish from consciousness, for it is memory itself incarnate. The arrival of colonial and missionary forces across Africa marked a violent rupture in the spiritual landscape, one of the most devastating being the silencing of the womb. European men with Bibles and guns proclaimed women's birthways as pagan portals, branding revered earth temples, birth caves, and goddess shrines as dens of witchcraft. These sites, where female elders presided over rituals celebrating life, fertility, and transformation, suddenly became markers of superstition and idolatry. In many regions, a woman who bore children amid ritual firelight was rebranded as a sorceress. Midwives who sang birth songs became witches in colonial courts. The old prayers, once spoken to Mother Earth and Goddess wombs, were erased from collective memory under threat of punishment. As churches and mission schools proliferated, spiritual authority began to shift from women's hands into the grasp of male clergy. Where once priestesses held ceremony in clay shrines under moonlit skies, male priests now delivered sermons in stone sanctuaries, preaching obedience and sin rather than embodiment and renewal. Boys learned to lead in church choirs, while girls were taught silent submission, an inversion of the matrilineal ceremonies that had once woven them into sacred genealogy. Even more insidious was the codification of this shift in Western texts and colonial governance. When masculine theology claimed moral and cosmic supremacy, feminine ritual knowledge became labeled unscientific, heathen, or demonic, and female spiritual leadership was outlawed or infantilized. Midwifery, once held as sacred craft, was undermined at every turn. Traditional birth attendants, keepers of fertility songs, moon cycle divination, and ancestral remembrance were disparaged or expelled in favor of Western-style hospitals and male-led prenatal care. Childbirth, once a communal rite bound by ancestral covenant, became a private medical event divorced from ritual and ritual responsibility. Many birth caves were sealed, and oral midwifery knowledge, songs, herbal knowledge, chants, faded as younger generations were told to trust doctors instead of ancestral guidance. With each pregnancy, less of spiritual continuity remained in hands, voices, and wombs. Simultaneously, churches and colonial governments commandeered sacred sites of the feminine. Where goddess temples once stood beneath forest canopies or within caves, chapels and schools were erected atop their ruins. A grove honoring Asase Ya became a site of prayer for a foreign god. A birth cave that had echoed with ritual chants became a storehouse or classroom. These physical intrusions were spiritual invasions. Every church's cornerstone hammered a nail into the womb of the earth, claiming custody of sacred space and divinity. This was not merely religious conversion, it was spiritual colonization. In outlawing priestesses and midwives, destroying womb temples, and erasing feminine cosmology, colonizers sought to sever entire societies from their originating mothers. The result was a severance of ritual lineage. Women no longer carried midwifery songs, nor did communities gather to honor earth wombs. Fertility rites vanished, replaced by hymns sung in foreign tongues. Spiritual networks once clustered around clay altars and womb caves were now centralized around church seats and male preachers. When spiritual authority moved from female hands to male pulpits, the womb lost its voice, and with it, a vital axis of cosmic balance. In this brutal transformation, the sacred feminine was not allowed to fade gently. It was forcibly removed, delegitimized, and replaced. African women were taught to distrust their bodily wisdom and to fear the very sites that had nurtured their ancestors for centuries. This silencing was spiritual warfare, an act of domination disguised as salvation. The seeds of feminine power were uprooted and the collective psyche suffered from the loss of its maternal foundation. Though this suppression fractured knowledge across generations, the fragments remain. Clay tokens hidden in family altars, whispered birth songs still known by grandmothers, secret midwifery remedies passed by voice, all testify to a womb that refuses to stay silent. In recent years, those fragments are being gathered into conscious reclamation. The earth wombs still breathe beneath our feet, and their breath is stirring in the hearts of women, remembering how to midwife, not just bodies, but souls. In recent years, there has been a quiet yet profound stirring beneath the soil. An awakening of the sacred feminine as modern spiritual midwives, doulas, and earth priestesses step forward, rediscovering practices long suppressed. Across rural villages and urban centers alike, women are reclaiming roles their ancestors once held in reverence. They are not merely performing rituals, they are midwifing cultural memory, reconnecting body with earth, ceremony with community, and spirit with soil. These modern custodians of ancestral wisdom facilitate womb healing circles where women gather in clay-lined sacred spaces and share herbs, teas, and songs that honor their menstrual cycles as sacred portals. Here the womb is seen not as an object of shame but as a threshold of power, resilience, and ancestral continuity. Ritual baths have re-emerged in rivers, wells, and purpose-created sacred pools, where water, fire, and prayer converge to cleanse not just bodies but cultural trauma. Women come seeking release from inherited pain, wounds inflicted by colonization, religious erasure, and patriarchal suppression. These baths are accompanied by ancestral chants, spoken in languages that once resonated in earth temples, carried down through whispered memory across generations. As water runs over their flesh, it also washes over ancestral wounds, reaffirming the womb's power to cleave away shame and reconnect women to their spiritual lineage. Moon ceremonies have also returned in powerful new ways. Guided by earth priestesses, women gather on full moons to mark phases of fertility, creativity, and release. They drum and dance, naming each cycle as a spiritual marker of inner work, lineage reclamation, and cosmic alignment. What once was traditional ritual tied to lunar calendars is now a reclaimed practice of sovereignty, where women declare their bodies and rhythms sacred. In these gatherings, midwifed or bleeding women are honored without stigma. Their cycles become strength, their bodies become altars, and their presence becomes prayer. This renaissance extends beyond circles and water. It is evident in legal birthing spaces and healing centers, where doulas reclaim African-rooted prenatal and postpartum care. These birth workers weave traditional knowledge into contemporary practice, guiding birthing families to honor placenta burials in natal groves, adhere to Ayurvedic-style womb care, and recite ancestral affirmations. Rooms are prepared with earth, seeds, and lit candles, inviting the spirit of the earth to assist in the birth process. These spaces serve not only as places of birth, but as portals to ancestral wellness and spiritual continuity. African women are also reclaiming power through art, music, and spoken word. In festivals and gatherings across Accra, Lagos, Johannesburg, and the diaspora, performances symbolize the earth-womb partnership, the dance of sowing seed and birthing lineage. Visual artists carve vessels shaped like wombs. Musicians sample birth songs passed down from grandmothers. Poets speak of returning to the cliffs where they believe the first births occurred. Through creative expression, they map feminine spirituality onto contemporary frames of identity and empowerment. This resurgence is more than nostalgic, it is devotional and political. As women reassert their spiritual authority, they challenge patriarchal and colonial structures that once silenced them. They reclaim not only birthing knowledge, but spiritual voice. In naming their rituals and spaces after goddess ancestors, Allah, Mawulisa, Asase Ya, they insist these figures never left. They were simply waiting to be remembered. This return to feminine power also ignites community healing. Women report ancestral presence during ceremonies, soft whispers in caves, ancestral footsteps in dance halls, healing tears in river water blessings. Children are introduced to womb temples as places of communal belonging, not shame. Through reclamation of ritual and space, feminine spirituality becomes a force for intergenerational restoration. In this unfolding spiritual restoration, decolonization finds its axis in women's bodies and Earth's womb. Such reclamation undermines centuries of spiritual violence. It is resistant, restorative, and revolutionary. By stepping into womb temples, baths, circles, and birthing rooms, anchored in indigenous knowledge, women are not just healing themselves, they are midwifing a cultural rebirth. The womb is no longer silenced. It is speaking again, through laughter, water, dance, blood, and prayer, summoning all of us back to the earth womb that birthed humanity. The womb is not forgotten, it never was. It endures as an eternal portal, a sacred nexus connecting earth, body, and spirit across time and culture. As this journey draws to a close, we return to that first breath felt deep within clay-lined caves, river shrines, and earth temples. We recognize that reclaiming these spaces, reworking birth caves, reverencing sacred springs, remembering the songs of midwives, not only honors ancient rituals, but resurrects ancestral power, history, and the kind of healing that matures slowly, like roots growing beneath stone. This restoration is more than memory, it is embodied reclamation. To return to the womb shrines is to return to a source beyond colonial rupture, to the quiet hum of earth that still remembers every birth, every ritual whisper, every woman who stood at the threshold of creation. When we reclaim these spaces, we reclaim our capacity to create, nurture, transform, and sustain life in its many forms, whether sending children into the world, welcoming communities into healing, or birthing collective futures grounded in balance. The earth knows this. She, like all mothers, waits patiently for her children to return, to step lightly, to speak with humility, to remember that life begins in the dark, in utter dependency, and in connection to forces greater than any individual ambition. Beneath our feet and before our eyes, the womb earth hums with the memory of power long denied, waiting for the voices, the ceremonies, the dances, the births, the stories to rise again. So honor the mothers who held communities together with their hands and songs. Honor the shrines that still breathe in hidden groves and river bends. Honor the stories passed down through song and silence, for in them lies our connective tissue to a heritage deeper than any empire or scripture. To honor them is to honor ourselves, to claim that we are worthy descendants of this sacred lineage. And in that honoring, let us offer a prayer to the divine feminine. O Mother, womb of earth and sky, we return to you with open hands, open hearts, and willing feet. Help us carry the flame of ancient birth wisdom to midwife healing in ourselves and our world. May our feet tread softly upon your soil. May our voices carry your memory, and may our lives reflect the balance and compassion you long carried in every cycle of becoming. Because the womb is not forgotten, and through reclaiming her, we remember who we are.